break through, and it would have a terrible time trying to locate the moon sometimes.
That's about the best. It's just I noticed that like the moon and the sun, like it's I don't know why. The sun I think's worse because it's during the day and I think it really can't. The best that I know of is make sure it's as level as possible. Like if the telescope's not level, then sometimes the compass really struggles with the moon. I mean,
Mm.
overall the moon isn't as bad. It's just like when it first tries to get it, sometimes it just takes a while. And I've seen it where it gives it up and then you do it again and it then finds like once it finds it, it seems to track it fine, except maybe with the clouds, but
Okay.
it's mostly just the give it enough time at the very beginning.
Yeah, one of the things, Brett, that I was always pretty lazy about the sea star. I would just bring it out, plop it down, get it roughly, if it said 1.3, 1.4, I said, okay, it's good enough for level. I think in the manual it says less than 3 or something, but
I
I
think it's
was
less than two,
maybe
but
less than 2, but I didn't worry about that too much. And it was hit and miss finding the sun or the moon, mainly miss. But what I started doing is I would do a compass calibration, which is that step where you just spin it around for like a
Oh,
minute.
right.
If I
Okay.
do that, and I bought one of those little leveler devices that really make it easy to level, and I get it down to less than 1, it seems to hit pretty well. I mean, I can hit the sun almost every time. I get the moon 9 out of 10 doing that, so it really improved the accuracy.
Okay. Thanks.
I
I'm not
think
saying I know. I'm not saying I know this for fact. But the last time, a couple days ago, I looked at the moon, but I set the sea star up so when the arm opened up, my guess was it would find the moon, and it did. It went. I pointed it at the moon, turned it on, said go to the moon. It lifted its arm, and it was going towards the moon. I don't know if that helps,
I don't know,
but
maybe.
yeah, but I mean,
I
it
think they've
made
also
sense to
improved the
me.
software, which, they've gotten better about it too since it first came out.
Yeah.
Heads up, we are now live on YouTube. So we're official.
Woohoo!
Yeah, for anyone who missed it like me, there's an eclipse coming up. Well, I didn't miss it yet.
Wait, you seriously didn't know it was coming, John? I thought you were joking.
No, you started talking about doing something on the next day. I was like, what are you talking about? So I Googled something. I was like, oh, there's a full eclipse.
Didn't Tom do like a whole presentation of it, like the
Probably.
last meeting?
Yeah, the last
Probably.
meeting. It was up on the screen.
I get more people texting me about it than must have 4 or 5 texts from different people.
I just got a text from Joe Lamb saying he's feeling a bit under the weather, but he says tell everybody best wishes.
Hope he feels better.
But he's
Feels
heading to
better.
bed.
Yeah. He's resting up for the eclipse.
Maybe. I doubt it, but
Yeah.
not a bad idea though.
Is anybody in the group going to the Air and Space Museum thing on Saturday, which may get called off if the government gets shut down?
I am.
I'm signed
Yeah.
up for it.
Yeah. What I
Yes.
heard, Jan called me this morning to ask my opinion on things and different stuff, and um, she called the Smithsonian, and they said even when there's been shutdowns, they have never closed. But and they should publish something. They usually put it on their site. It says, like a day before they'll put up, or 2 days before they'll put something up. So maybe, hopefully tomorrow, if they're going to shut down, hopefully tomorrow, or whatever they're going to do, hopefully they tell us by Thursday. I think we have to tell the bus company by late Friday afternoon or around 5 o'clock Friday if if you want to postpone it. If you postpone it, um, you don't lose the money, but you pick another date. Um, that's got a lot of complications, of course, because the new date, some people will make it, some people won't. There's got to be refunds, and that gets messy, especially for Scott probably because he's treasurer, and you can't do that
It
through
gives me
Club
something to
Express, so it's going
do.
to be a bit of a nightmare. Um, but hopefully, we won't have to do that. I mean, the chance of a shutdown sounds like it's pretty good, but even if they do settle, all these things seem to settle at like 3 o'clock in the morning the next day. I mean, the last couple have come. I mean, the deadline was midnight, but they approve it at like 2 in the morning, you know? That seems to be the way this goes. So that's early Saturday morning. So that ship will have long sailed, you know, as far as knowing that for us.
The Smithsonian is probably part of the government that is self-sustaining. They may not close because their funding doesn't come from the budget, it comes from fees. I
Yeah,
work for
maybe.
part
Well,
of the
that
government
actually though, the
that does that.
Smithsonian Museum itself is actually free to enter.
Uh,
Now you have to pay for parking though. Parking is like $11 or
Well, that'll do
something.
it.
They get you in the park, you know, one of those free to enter, pay as you leave kind of a thing.
But they
It's
may
happened
be
to me once or
self-funding
twice
in some
actually
way.
at museums. So
Yeah, so-
hopefully we'll know and we'll make a decision, you know, um, at the latest early Friday morning. We'll make it go, no go. But yeah, I'm hoping it goes. I've
yeah.
always wanted to visit that museum and I haven't. I've been to the one in DC, but uh, I think it would be a cool museum to see.
Yeah, should be a neat trip if we can go. The thing that I was going to do today before I heard this, because Dave and his wife we're going to be driving over together, and you to get advance tickets to some of the movies and the shows, because just in case you get there and if things are sold out already, you may not be able to get to see one of those IMAX things if you're interested in that. Or I think the planetarium, when Dave said he looked into that, they have multiple shows throughout the day. You just kind of get in line for those, from what he's telling me. So we'll see. One step at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about the IMAX, but I decided I'm going to pass on the IMAX only because I haven't been to the museum and I'll probably spend so much time just reading. I'll probably need 3 times the amount of time we have to try to cover what I want to see. I like to read about things too as I'm looking, you know, so I'm a
Well,
slow museum person.
what you do, Tom, is you take a photograph, your cell phone of the reading stuff, and you can read it later
Yeah, right. Keep moving.
on the bus trip back. As
I
we
don't know if
get
they have
stuck
any
in.
audio tours. A lot of museums have audio tours now, but I didn't see anything on that.
Oh, that would be a
But
good
that would be
idea.
nice, you know?
Yeah.
But
That's
I
pretty
don't
good.
recall. I was there last year, and I don't recall if there was anything for an audio tour. They do have like a tour, like I think it's every hour that they walk around, and that was nice. So they do have a tour guide that'll tell you through a lot of the stuff.
yeah, that would be good.
Kind of give you a
So,
lay of the land, then go back and take a look at something
yeah,
more.
I'm gonna look at I opened up well, just briefly opened up they have the map and stuff of the layout of the place, you know, kind of set up. So I'll look at that a little closer to see, you know, they have things on their website like the 11 must-sees, you know, that kind of a thing, you know, and you know, their biggest attractions, you know, like the space shuttle and the Enola Gay and different things like that are
Oh, they didn't get rid of that yet.
it is the Enola. Yeah, it just says Enola now.
So just black tape on top of it.
That's right.
They'll paint over it.
Oh, jeez. The sad
That's a whole
times.
different story.
Let's
not get banned.
Well, I'll throw out an actual astrophotography thing since does anybody else use the Gemini 2 for their scope?
Do not.
Don't all shout at once.
Joe Lamb. I think Joe Lamb uses Gemini.
Right. Because I have on my setup up here, I have the Gemini 2 on MI250, and then down in Chiefland, I have Gemini 2 on my MI250. And I've never upgraded the firmware because when it comes to computer stuff, I mean, I have the kiss of death. If you want your thing to go blue screen, just let me touch your computer and I'll guarantee it will happen. But everybody's talking about this new level 6 on that, which is supposed to have improved the tracking and a whole bunch of other things. And if I send the unit back to Los Mandy, it's like $150 per unit. One of my buddies down in Chiefland said he can do a thing with this kid he had me buy on Amazon to, I guess, download the update over line, but I'm a little hesitant just because of my luck with this crap. So that's why I was just wondering if anybody else had tried it.
What is it?
Like I said, it's firmware upgrade. You have to upgrade the firmware in the hand controller and in the actual unit itself.
What's Gemini?
Gemini's is Los Mandy's computerized tracking device that they sell to go along with their G11 and the G8 mounts.
And it's strictly for Los Mandy, though, right?
Their
Strictly
go-to
Los
drive
Mandy.
system.
Yeah, well, it's for Los Mandy's mounts, and then like I said, the MI250 utilized that before the guy went out of business. I don't know if you guys, I forget the guy's name who actually built the MI250 mounts, but they were almost equivalent to astrophysics as far as like weight capacity and being good, but a hell of a lot cheaper. And originally they were on a tangent arm, and then they started to upgrade that. But when they were able to then convert it to go-to, you could buy a kit from him to upgrade your mount, and it was reasonably pretty cheap. And what a lot of people were doing, they were upgrading their old mounts and then selling them. I don't know if Astromart and Cloudy Nights was around then. I think Cloudy Nights at least was. And so that kind of killed his business because everybody was just upgrading their own mounts and selling them.
Oh.
So, but it's a really nice mount. It's really heavy duty and can take a lot of weight.
I just put a on-step motors on my telescope that I bought, classified. It's really nice and quiet. It used to be this LXD 75 Mead. It sounded like a coffee grinder when it runs. And it had a lot of backlash and it's like a little frustrating. So I put those motors on, and at first I thought there was something wrong because it was so quiet.
You couldn't hear the grinding sound.
I couldn't hear anything. Only when it was slewing, only when it was slewing a lot, then I could hear it.
Meads were known for that whine. I had an old LX200 10-inch, and you could hear it, a quarter mile away when it was slowing.
Yeah.
I was always self-conscious, like, because it's real dark and, people are getting into their thing. And then I want to change targets and there's this, like, sorry.
Now I'm being challenged by all the acronyms, like ASCOM and Me Driver and Nina and PhD2 and PhD3 and PhD square. I don't know what. I figured out ASCOM and installed that on my laptop, and I installed the driver for OnStep, and so I can make that work, but I don't know what else can this control. I bought it this Terrans Industry OnStep kit from China. It's like,
And that's what Tomas, that's what the motors, that's where the motors are from?
Yeah. It's it's like a turnkey thing. You just install it, and it has a Wi-Fi connection, so you can operate it from a phone, or you can hook up with a wire. So I don't have any plans to do it. I'm just looking at planets, but maybe I'm just wondering, like, what the heck, what is Nina and what are all those things? People just talk about them and never bother to explain the acronyms. Maybe you guys can tell me what all that stuff is.
Nina, I believe it stands for nighttime imaging, something or other.
Well, what is
it? Astronomy, I think it's astronomy, something like that.
I use Nina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it software? Is it hardware? Software.
No, it's software. It's image acquisition.
The software. And how does it connect to the telescope, and what do you use it for?
Use it for deep sky image acquisition, and it can control the mount, and it can control other devices, and it has a built-in. You can pick your targets and do go-to. So it's you've used SharpCat.
Yeah, but I mean, would I use it to go via the ASCOM platform and a driver to control my?
You can use ASCOM. It supports ASCOM drivers. Yeah.
It's Windows based, right, John? It's a Windows based.
Yes.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but yes, I use Windows.
Yeah.
What?
Or just for that.
One thing I
struggle.
It's very commonly used. It's It's used by many people, that the Nina software platform for their image
Yeah.
acquisition.
So the other question I had is like you're talking about planets. So I can now track a planet, and I was looking at fire capture, and there is some option you can connect to the mount, and it appears that you can do it to guide to keep the planet in view. So it will control the scope to make sure it's in the region of interest. Anybody use that?
I do. I use fire capture, and I've also used it with my Los Mandi G11 to do the automatic guiding of the
Okay.
planet. I've had a little more trouble with my Ioptron mount. I think just because of not spending the time. When I moved my scope from my Los Mandi to my Ioptron, I have this it's a CEM 40 mount. I
Oh.
tried it, but there's like a settings panel in fire capture, and you can change the direction, and you can change sort of the length of the pulses in terms of the guide pulses. And I was in the middle of imaging a planet, and I'm trying to like set this up, and all of a sudden the planet's running off the screen because I changed the direction of one of the variables, and it's sort of like, no, I was tracking really well. I put it in the right tracking mode. So I just kind of manually had the hand controller set to the lowest, like 0.5x sidereal rate for the control, and just manually did it. I maybe had to touch it once in a 2-minute video capture, but it does work. It's just that it may be, I guess the point is that it may be a little finicky getting the parameters right so that it doesn't run off and kind of like throw it off the screen, because it will do that. All of a sudden the planet just kind of takes off because it's sending it guide pulses that are too big in the wrong direction. And but it does work.
Yeah, there should be some way to simulate that thing. When you're in my workroom, I bring my computer, everything in there, and just fake it somehow so you can practice instead of going outside.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, but it's not, maybe
Not
making it
needed.
sound harder than it is. It's just that at the moment I had a very limited window, and I never went back to it. But I used it for a long time with the Los Mandi mount, which it's called the ST4 interface. It's basically like a little RJ12 phone jack, and it has the left and right pulses that are on that come in on that port. That's a very standard guide interface. It's an old standard from serial ports on computers, where they just literally used the control lines on the serial ports, on the RS-232 ports, to basically send the pulses to the mount to change, to like pressing the button on the hand controller. It's exactly simulating.
But we're talking about two different things now, right?
No, I'm just talking about guiding, using like a software of whatever means to guide, to help guide a mount. Like
But a separate camera.
On a separate.
A guiding camera.
No, like the planetary camera. You're using a planetary camera on an optical tube, right? And you're going to have real high focal length, so that the planet's big. And maybe you're running at f20 or f30 or something like that. So fairly high focal length. That focal ratio, and coupled with a long focal length optical tube. So that main camera, through fire capture, capture knows where the planet is in that chip, right, in the imaging chip, and then it'll send a command to the mount to keep it centered. That interface is called the ST, like Sam Tom -4 interface.
Are you plugged in right from the camera? The camera's ST4 port to the mount?
Yeah.
Oh, directly from there.
I go right from the camera. I take a little
right into the ST4 port in the mount,
cable, and I stick it. I mean, it's a 4-pin phone cable, not a 2-pin. And I plug it into the camera guide port, the same imaging camera. I use an ASI 485 MC. Plug it right into the guide port of the it's called on the Los Mandy, it's called the SD4 mount. On my Ioptron, I think it's called a guide port.
Oh, okay. So I was wondering what the physical connection was. So from SD4 port to the camera port, the black little thingy, the plug that always gets lost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just have them. I have them in a little poly bag somewhere. All the little plugs, because I typically have something plugged into it, a cable.
So it's not a regular
the other thing,
cable.
The other thing fire capture
the same as a phone cable.
It's not a phone cable, right? It's like a different cable, or is it?
It's
J9 or
without
something?
getting into too much detail. There's like 4-pin and 6-pin phone connectors,
and it comes with the
camera.
camera.
Even 2-pin for the handsets, but we don't need to talk about those. This is a basically the 4/6-pin. They're called RJ11, RJ12 connectors, and it uses the middle 4 wires of that.
It's a 6-pin 4-conductor.
Correct.
Yeah.
Six pin 4-conductor connector. RJ12 with a 4-wire cable.
And they provide ZWO provides those when you get a camera. They give you both cables. They give you the standard camera.
That's it.
And then
I just reached into the box, so I said, like, what the heck is this?
That's it. So you take that from the port of the camera, the one with the little rubber plug in it, pull out the plug, stick that in, and then stick that in the guide port of your telescope. And then look at the settings. There's a little info thing. It'll tell you, you can change the polarity of the pulses. You can even manually do it. Once you go into guide mode with fire capture, it's really kind of slick. It's really oriented nicely for this purpose. It puts up a little like the little cursor icons on the upper right of the screen. You can just press those with your mouse too if you want to manually guide it. If you don't want to reach for the hand control, because sometimes just moving the hand control or just a coiled cable at those, at 5,000-6,000 millimeter focal length, you can see that. You can see the planet looks like really bad seeing all of a sudden, and it's the cable moving with the wind or something. The other thing fire capture does, which is nice, is it allows you to control an autofocuser.
Yeah, I might control it. Comes with a port from on step, so I have to figure out anything special. But yeah, okay, now I see a wire connection required. Good.
And if you have like an ASCOM driver for that focuser or something, then fire capture can talk through that.
That was the other question. The focuser I have is I bought this telescope from Robert Mediri. And it is the same one that I saw on the high scientific, whatever that company is that's selling meat stuff.
Oh, High Point Scientific.
Yeah, High Point.
Yeah, they have that focuser. It was like supposedly $299, but anyway, it came with my telescope, and it doesn't clamp to the big knob, but it clamps to the actual tube, so it moves the tube in and out like a fine. But the extension of that. It's the coil wire is only like an audio plug with 3 pins. But I don't think that's not a stepper motor or anything. So I don't think that can be directly controlled. So I mean, I do it by hand, I guess.
Yeah, you do it by hand. I tell you, 90% of the time I do it by hand. I have a small hand controller, just 2 push buttons for my focuser motor. Because one of the things that fire capture does, which annoys me, it remembers if you use the autofocus, like not the autofocus, but I mean the electronic focus mode of it, it remembers the last state of the motor that was plugged into it, the stepper motor, like where it is or where it was, and when you power it up, it brings it to that whatever that number is, like however many steps it is. Yeah. And there's a lot of times when you're doing planetary imaging, I mean, focus is really, really critical in planetary imaging. And you kind of tweak it, you get it to where everything's exactly where you want. And a lot of times you're using an SCT or something where there's a mirror that's moving. So that changes kind of where the 0 point of your focus is and stuff like that. like the whatever focus mechanism you have on the scope. Like I have a separate sort of a Crayford style focuser on my SCT. So I use the mirror to just kind of get the optics aligned so that I have something that's close in focus. And then I use the actual focuser, the actual Crayford focuser with an electronic motor on it to fine tune that. And then I never touch the mirror. I just, the mirror is just where it is. And then I do that. Well, I'll get it all set up. I'll turn on fire capture and forget that the last time I used it, I had the focuser mode on, and it goes and changes my Crayford focuser to wherever it was the last time I used it.
Oh.
And then it's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I tell you, 99% of the time, or maybe 95% of the time, I just disable the electronic focus mode of fire capture because I invariably forget to turn it off or forget to reset the number to kind of where it is today and where the sweet spot is. And you're not changing it too often. I mean, I usually refocus every couple exposures. It depends. I'll set a run in fire capture. I'll set it up to do like 10 2-minute sessions or something like that. And I'll usually between sessions tweak focus because it seems to change quite a bit. I don't know your experience, Tom, but focus is so
It
hard to
changes a
do
lot. Yeah.
at those focal lengths that
Yeah. It
usually
doesn't take
not
much.
sure
It
if it's
changes.
right, and I'll try something else. Maybe I can get it better the next 10 exposures or something.
No.
In my case, it changes quite a bit because, well, the tube's aluminum. That has a pretty good expansion rate, and it's
Right.
almost 8 feet long. So, so it can grow by a few millimeters between 80 degrees and 50 degrees. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big
Yeah.
deal. So, if the temperature drops a couple degrees, it may shift the focus a millimeter, half a millimeter. So, yeah, I'm always redoing it.
Focusing is a
Every
big
20
always a
minutes,
pain.
I'm just checking. If it doesn't look good, if it still looks good, I won't touch it. But I don't go more than a half an hour on any given night before
Yeah.
I touch it
Yeah,
again.
that's about what I do. I do about 20-minute sessions because that's when you have to change the ADC. I can get about 15-20 minutes out of the ADC, the atmospheric dispersion corrector before the bubbles kind of on the other line, like the opposite line.
Yeah,
So
I don't have that yet.
Sharp Cap has just like Fire Capture does. You can with the Fire Capture, I think you try to get circles lined up, and there's probably numbers there too. In Sharp Cap, there's a series of numbers that come up, and you can see how much the red and blue are basically off, and you try to get it as small as possible. And depending on the night, these things are with the atmosphere just isn't seeing, these numbers flop a bit,
yeah.
So you try to minimize it, but I usually reset the ADC. Well, I'll just keep checking the ADC just to see where I'm at. Now, this year with the planets being so high, I've gone longer without having to reset it.
Yeah.
When Saturn was very low in the sky, I was changing every 15 minutes, like you said. You notice numbers because I could look at these numbers and they were, instead of being like 0.2 and 0.3, they were like cutting up to like 0.9 or 1 or something. Okay, let's bring it back down,
Yeah.
So where would
But,
I get one? How much is it? Sounds expensive.
They're relatively inexpensive. They're $128, I think.
Yeah, something like that. When they first came out, I forget those. I guess I don't know if I'm not sure who made them originally, but they were quite a bit more expensive. But ZWO's works fine, and it's much cheaper. It's a
I
nice.
think the original ones were like $800, not from
Yeah, they were
ZWO,
really
that
high.
other
I didn't even
company.
think about it. They were so high.
They were real, yeah. Like for me, it's sort of like
Yeah, it's
there's
not
no
worth
way.
it.
I mean, because you could kind of do it in software afterwards, even though it's not as good. Like Auto Stacker will they'll
Yeah,
align
there's a little
Registacks
checkbox,
will align
auto
the
align,
channels.
RGB align. There's a
Yeah,
checkbox,
yeah. It
And you can
doesn't
do
work
it.
as well as the
You can do it in
ADC.
Registacks too, but it's kind of manual there. You're kind of like upping and downing the.
Right.
But
I dropped a link to it, Tom.
Yeah, I
But
just saw you send me the link.
you
Yeah.
use the 1.25 inch, guys. You don't use the 2 inch, right?
yeah,
Inch and a quarter.
Yeah, that's all you need. Okay.
we're
I
dealing
have
with
a
real little
2 inch.
small, with a real small field here.
Yeah,
Very
this is
small.
tiny.
We're using the very center of the sensor.
Great. Just double checking.
And one little nuance that I found with the atmospheric dispersion corrector, I have an old 2-inch power mate from my Dob, from my old Dob, and that's what I use on my planetary imaging because like a power mate, they're called uh it's a type of Barlow, but they're called telecentric Barlows. It's a certain configuration where the magnification of the sort of the Barlow lenses doesn't change depending on the distance
Yeah, you
of
have to
the
use that
you
kind.
know
Yeah.
like between the lens element or the focal plane of the lens element and sort of where the sensor is. And it makes it easier, I find, with the ADC, if you have some kind of a telecentric Barlow. You don't need that. I've done it with both, but I find it easier with the telecentric because the position doesn't matter where it is, assuming it's after the Barlow or
Yeah.
after the telecentric or
Yeah.
power mate.
I got an Explore Scientific 2X Barlow, which was cheaper than the Teleview, but it was a couple $100, but it's the same thing. It's telecentric. It doesn't have it. Now I have an old Edmunds. Before I realized this, when I first started using the ADC, had an old Edmunds Barlow, and I put that thing in there. And even if the old Barlows used to actually work on that principle that you could slide the lens inside the Barlow tube
Right,
to get a 2X or 3X Barlow just by
right.
shifting it with your eyepiece in there. Well, if now with that Barlow, if I move it all the way up, so it normally would give 2X with an eyepiece, with the additional distance with the ADC in the path, it gives me about 3.1x, the distance wise, if you calculate it out. So if I want to do Mars, I will use that Barlow but I'll move it as far as I can to get as low Barlow effect as I can. But I naturally get it because basically I've extended the tube. I'm still extending it out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but the 2X I
Are
use
they
for everything
go ahead.
else.
Are they better than the APO Barlows? Like I was actually looking at the app, and they have like I think it's a 2X and a 4X, but they call it an APO Barlow.
I
And
don't I don't
are
know.
are
I
like
know
the
the
Teleview Power Mates, are
I
they
don't know.
better
I don't know. I mean,
than the,
APO typically means that
especially
it
when you're
doesn't
using an
have.
atmospheric
it
dispersion?
just has more lenses. It has
Yeah,
three lenses.
APO means it generally refers to not having a chromatic aberration.
It's better corrected.
So the lenses are corrected. I don't. I mean, I'm not sure the item you're referring to, but I wouldn't take it to mean that that's telecentric.
Yeah.
Telecentric has an extra set of lenses that basically make sort of the light come out parallel, so it's not a
Yeah. The
cone.
Okay.
the Explorer Scientific doesn't even call it a Barlow. They call it a 2X tele extender, because they don't use the word Barlow because a Barlow it varies with the distance of your.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
the old years
And
ago I
the
bought
Power Mates are telecentric.
yes.
Power Mates are telecentric, yes. Years ago at NEAF,
Okay.
I bought like a 2X Teleview Barlow, and then a couple years later, I bought a 3X Barlow, and I was cleaning the lenses one time, and I took them apart, and they were identical lenses. The only difference was the length of the tube that was on the back end of that lens assembly.
Yeah.
So you could, like Tom's saying, you could take a little 1.25 inch extender and make
Yeah.
a
Put in the
Barlow
bottom. You
change
got
its power.
you got a 3X.
And they also had Barlows, like Tom was saying, with they had a little thumb screw, and you could move the element in there in the tube and change the power of the Barlow.
Got
Let
it.
me maybe switch the subject with some help. So there is a total lunar eclipse Monday, like at 2 o'clock or something. Is that right? How do people plan to photograph it?
Well, it starts at 1 o'clock in the night, but there's a lot of ways you can photograph it.
I mean,
mean,
I just took out my DSLR with 500 millimeter lens and it looked like
you
that
can
would
do
work.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a DSLR on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a 400 millimeter on a tracker. 400 millimeter on a
Yeah, I can put it
And
on
one of the things I highly recommend, if you have some way to track, like a little, sky tracker or anyone would work. Um, the beauty of that is you can keep the ISO low and have the exposure time go up, and you'll get much, much, much sharper images. Because the moon, when it's a full blood moon, it gets pretty dark.
It's dark, yeah.
It gets dark, and you need. Those images I showed last month's meeting when I did the talk about the upcoming lunar eclipse. I showed an image that was of the blood moon from 2019, I think it was, something like that.
Okay.
That was a 4-second exposure
Okay, yeah, I
on
will.
that at ISO 100, and it was the sharpest I've ever gotten with a blood moon lunar eclipse. I had some comparison images that were like ISO 800 and ISO 400, that were not tracked. Hands down, tracking was better.
That's a
Gary,
good
was that
idea.
with the
I will,
Ioptron?
I will put my tripod on my equatorial platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Gary, was that shot with the blood moon with the Ioptron?
What I did, actually, I used I have also had an old, still have an old Los Mandy GM8. So I used an equatorial mount that time. Tomorrow night, if the weather's good, I have the tracker. In fact, I carried it out today because I'm going to polar align it tonight while it's clear, and just leave it out. Turn it off overnight and put a bag over it.
How
I'm
far
gonna
out
leave
of
it
the
in the
city
yard.
lights are you?
What's that?
How far out of the city lights are you?
I'm about 27 miles from Center City, but I mean it's the moon, so it's bright. I mean, it's not light pollution's not a factor with the blood moon, at least in my experience.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's even I don't know what the magnitude would be when it's in the blood moon. I mean it's significantly darker, obviously. But I mean the moon right now is minus 1 point. Oh, I don't know. We could look it up.
So how long will it be in total eclipse?
About an hour, I think.
Yeah, about an hour and
I think
7
about
minutes
an
or
hour.
something.
It's total. I think center point of totality of maximum totality is around 3 in the morning.
Yeah, just a little before 3.
Yeah, be like 2:55, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Okay.
And that's the center. Now it isn't perfectly centered in the shadow, in the umbral shadow. It's near the edge. So, but it'll still get should still get pretty dark. You will probably see a gradient across it. The only time there's not much gradient if the shadow, is right, if the moon's right in the center of the shadow, which is not common.
What camera settings are you going to use? Are you
I
suggesting?
tell you, I in the past I've done it all kind of manually. I'll just, stand there and I'll change the shutter speed. I'll leave the aperture the same. I'll leave the ISO the same, and I'll change the shutter speed. I think tomorrow night, I'm just going to set the camera for aperture priority and just let the auto exposure kind of do it, and then I'll just bracket it. I'll bracket it one stop on each side probably. I think I'm just going to set up, because the weather doesn't look like it's going to be that favorable. I'd kind of rather not babysit it, so I might just set an intervalometer up to take a picture every couple minutes, and just let the camera do the auto exposure. I'll kind of look at it, keep an eye on it, and tweak it if I need to. But I know that's like Dan McCauley does that with his time lapses. He uses the automatic exposure, and he'll even change the ISO because he's going from daytime to nighttime kind of time lapses. So the modern cameras have a way where you can set a range of ISO. I'm not planning to do that tomorrow because I want to try to minimize noise. So I'll shoot it at like ISO 100, maybe 200 sometimes I use. Depending on the camera, 200 can actually be lower grain than 100, depending on the specs of the sensor and whatever software they have running it. but something relatively slow ISO, slow effective film speed, and just let the shutter speed make up the difference. Because if you're tracking, you won't get motion blurring.
So it's several seconds probably, right?
Yeah, I mean the ones I have. I mean, I can pull them up. I had them. I think I
That's
still
okay.
have
I
my
believe
talk
you.
from last week or last month. I mean's meeting.
We believe you. Yeah.
Um, let me get to that folder.
While you're doing that, I came across this beautiful design program for equatorial platforms, including simulation, and it prints out a template just so you can just make it. It's amazing. I don't know if you guys have looked at it. I had the
Yeah, you
same.
sent that out about a week or so ago, right, Tom?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but I don't know if you were interested. A few minutes, I could just show you the simulation on screen. If I share the screen, it's pretty amazing. The guy who did it, programming, was some genius. And so what I did was I looked at the design, put in my parameters, and it exactly matched what I have. So whoever designed my platform must have used some kind of a similar design program, or the math just works out the same way if you do it right. So I was pleased that it tracks well, and that now I know why. So I don't know if anybody has a DOPS, you can't look at
Tom,
the tracker.
what do you use? What are parameters that it needs?
I can show you a screen that with all the input parameters if you want in a few
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
Or if you want to do it right now, if I share.
Yeah, bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You should have permission. If not, Holly.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
Yep.
I don't know if I can not make it larger, but here's some input parameters. So you can rotate the thing, view,
Mhm.
and you can simulate it. Really cool. So here are the parameters. Is it a VNS type or is it a G platform? So does he have two segments or just a pivot? So I chose pivot. So it rotates around the pivot that matches the height of these segments running on rollers. So then you have to calculate the mass of your telescope, which you can estimate.
Mhm.
And then you tell it 0. So that means this pivot point, it rotates around here. It's the same height as the cones, the segment touching the rollers. So to make that 0, and then, like how far you're going to put the telescope on, like where is it going to be center of mass, and then how long you want it to travel, and do you want the segments to be screwed into the bottom of the board, or some other way, so you can tell it how far above the board it is. So my board is 18 millimeters, so it's slightly below. And then how far you want it to go below. Like if you see the simulation, it dips below the bottom board a little bit. So you can set that. Then you tell it the width of the board, which is just a T shape, that doesn't matter. And the radius of your DOP, so 270 millimeters. You can even put in feet. I didn't use those, but you can put like feet and where they're located, and it puts the feet there. I don't know why mine just sits flat on it. Then the distance between the bearings, like from here to here,
Mhm.
I just put my numbers in there, and then you say print, and it comes out and prints out the whole top board. So you can just you get some kind of view with multiple pages like this, and you can tape it together and put it over your plywood and cut it. This shape doesn't matter, I think, as long as it's able to support your DOP. So mine is kind of triangular, like full.
Mhm.
And then you have to worry about the motors and everything. So that's a different story. But the basic thing is the shape and also the segments. So it prints out these segments,
Hmm.
actual scale, and you can just put it over the wood and you cut it, or aluminum, and then you have to.
Wow.
Oops. Anyway, I thought it was kind of cool how he
It
does
is
that.
pretty cool.
You can see the effect of it. What happens when you? I don't know what happened to it.
Tom, is 96 minutes thereabouts the parameter you have for travel time, or
Well,
what is your practical travel time?
I have been in almost an argument with the guy. He tells me that it should be 96 minutes, but he tells me that I am looking at the wrong way. But I built a platform and I timed it, and it goes exactly an hour. I don't know. So, I'm not going to argue with the mathematician. Okay, whatever. So he says, I'm looking at the wrong, this is the cone, right here. This line is the cone that points to Polaris. So he tells me I need to be able to look at it from this point of view, and it's 96 from that point of view, but if you look at it horizontal is an hour. But anyway, it's an hour, which then after an hour I put a switch there so it doesn't fall off the rollers.
Yeah, yeah.
Just pick it up and move it back. I mean, an
Yeah.
hour is plenty of time. When I
Mhm.
took it to the star party, it was great because all these people are coming in, want to take a look. I didn't have to bump it. Here it is, just watch it.
Yeah,
I was impressed.
I can attest to that. We were looking at Venus, and I walked away, and Tom was somewhere else, and I walked back to his scope. It was dead in there, like beautiful, beautiful focus, beautiful image. It was even low in the sky, but the thing was perfectly positioned in the viewfinder in the
Yeah.
eyepiece.
I mean, it's at high resolution. You have to make sure you a polar line. So this is a big deal about this. So I have a compass and level. So this has to be polar line. But it
Hmm.
didn't seem to be that critical. I just aimed it in north and yeah, at higher magnification, you also have to adjust the speed of the motor, but a certain voltage that seems to work. So if you don't get it right, you just tweak the little knob and it goes faster or slower.
Mm.
So for visual, it's just beautiful. I mean, without that, it's just, especially my scope is just got so much stiction. I replaced the bottom part with Lazy Susan, so that's acceptable. But the altitude is like, if it says low altitude, no problem. But I don't know how to solve that yet. I have to figure out how to make that smoother.
Is your motor speed affected by your battery condition?
Doesn't seem to be. It's a little motor from Mead, or a bunch of people make them out of China, and it takes a 9-volt battery. And I think, I replaced it with AA cells, but I've been using it for, I don't know, weeks. It doesn't seem to
Wow.
affect the speed. If it is, you can just throw a knob and just tweak it up, but it hasn't changed. I think it's
Mhm.
somehow it's controlling it. The voltage out is independent of the in over a certain range. And I have a little voltmeter that's next to it so that I can reproducibly set it to what it should be if somebody kicks it.
Hmm.
So I think, I mean, there people go overboard with all kind of stepper motors, and you see lots of electronics. This one has nothing, just a little box attached to the axle.
And it
And
works great.
Cool.
it's, yeah, I mean, I've taken pictures of it and posted some of those,
Yeah.
Saturn and the moon. That's the biggest pain. I don't know how you guys handle that. You can find the image in a telescope, and then when you go replace the camera, all goes well. It's like, where the heck is it? Then I have to put it back out again. I think with the equatorial one, it's a little easier, sturdier, but with the Dobbs, if you go high magnification. That's why I find it a lot easier to do it with a cell phone. I zoom out on the cell phone, I can see a little dot, that's Saturn, then I get it in the middle and I just pinch out and out till it fills in the screen. Adjust the speed, and of course it's not as good as a ZWO camera, but it's certainly a lot simpler.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's a kind of cool thing that this guy designed, and you can see it from different angles and
It is
how,
cool.
how it moves. So you can see that it's turning over this imaginary point, and the scope sits on top.
That's cool.
And the fact that it prints it out, that makes it nice. So anyway, some guy, his name is Hank. I don't know where is he from. He's active on the Cloudy Nights. That's where I found it.
Hmm.
Anyway, I can stop sharing. Enough.
I did pull up those pictures if you guys want to see like a couple
Sure.
exposures. These are single exposures of the moon with
Sure,
like
yeah.
this. I'll share. This has a little bit of unsharp mask, this one.
Like, so so I know what to shoot for, just like with Tom,
So
my hero.
Ooh,
That's nice.
nice.
so this, I'll make it full screen.
Very
So
nice.
that's full frame with I think it's a 540 millimeter focal length
Okay, cool.
with the APS-C sensor, crop sensor. So this is a single exposure with a little bit of unsharp mask, just to give you an idea of and you can stack this stuff too. You know, like I've done some things where I've taken six exposures close to one another, because you got to do it in a pretty tight, relatively tight timeline, because the coloring's changing and stuff. But this I think was
How do you time the exposures? Like one after the other? You have some device that takes exposures, or for you?
one sec. I have an intervalometer.
What's that?
It just shoots the camera, it just triggers the shutter. So this is jumping around.
Maybe I
I'm
can
jumping
use
around.
maybe I can use my Eclipse program that I was hoping to use for this.
So this is an eight
Oh, you could.
second
I'm sure you could.
8-second exposure at ISO 100. If you see the
Oh,
file info here,
well, 8 seconds. Okay.
this was an old Canon 50D when I shot this. This is 2010. This was shot with a 4-inch refractor, a Teleview 101, which is 540 millimeters, with an old Canon 50D, 8-second exposure. And it just,
Wow.
I was just always really happy with this picture. It was a crystal clear, very cold night. That's the other thing. It was like 17 degrees, and this was on the winter solstice, so it was like December 23rd, something like that. Well, here it is, December 21st, 2010. So that obviously makes a difference. Here's another one.
Your image scale, Gary, is like, it's really 800 something millimeters, right? Since it's a
It's 1.4 times, you know what it is?
1.6.
Yeah, it'd be 1.6 on a Canon
1.6.
camera. It's 1.6 to 1.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it'd be like 800 millimeter. Otherwise, the moon would be just smaller, obviously,
Right.
in the frame.
Right.
But this is basically the full APS-C frame.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't cropped. This one, let me get rid of that. 1 second.
Was those stars around there?
Yeah, those were stars. This was get file info on that.
3
So
o'clock
this
in
is
the
a
morning?
cropped version, 4-second exposure.
Mm.
This is a different frame also, and this might be
100 ISO.
Okay.
yeah, it's 100 ISO. So here I changed the levels, and then there's a mild unsharp mask on it.
Mm.
What does
This
that
is a
mean?
4-second exposure, ISO 100, and I think I have one from another.
What's a unsharp mask?
Post-processing sharpening filter.
Oh, okay. Sharpening. Okay.
Yeah, so this is actually just a different time that night when it's coming. I don't have the captions on these. These are the pictures that I dropped into the presentation. Then I put the the information next to it. So I don't have the captions on this, but this is just like, this is whatever 15 or whatever minutes after max totalities. This is coming out of totality that same evening. Here's an example of a shorter exposure. This is 1 second. So this is when it's kind of leaving that penumbral phase, going into the total phase. You can see there's still gray here. There's still gray. There's still some white from the penumbral phase before it goes into the umbral phase, which was the real blood moon. This is 1 second exposure.
So on Friday, where can I expect it to be? High or like I have my house in the way, so I have to set up.
Going to be, what I look up, I think it's about +5 degrees in declination, so a little bit higher than Orion's belt type
Yeah,
of height.
it's
If you know where
pretty
Orion
high.
is right now at nighttime,
Oh, so yeah, so that's
it'll
gonna be
be, if
all
you
right.
went outside tonight, well, yeah, tonight's probably so clear. You went outside about 11 o'clock tonight, looked at Orion's belt, look above it, sort of.
Okay, okay.
It's
So I'm
about in that area of the sky during totality.
all right.
That's
So
about where it'll be.
I have to go my driveway somewhere else on a neighbor's yard because my house will be in the way then. Okay, it's good to know.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You can walk around neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
Tell him you know Tom
What could
Nalaska.
happen? What could possibly go wrong?
My neighbor has been away from the house for a year and a half, and I parked my car there. So, but she has a camera, so I have to warn her that it's me.
So I'm sorry about that. This gives you an idea. This was uh shot in 2019. This was without tracking. So this is 1/8 of a second, and I pushed the ISO up to 400. This is 6 minutes before the beginning of the umbral phase before totality. But you can see the difference in the image quality.
Yeah.
You can see the graininess in it. The black point could have been a little lower on this. You can see the gray in the probably a little bit too much of the gray in the sky. But you look at that compared to
I mean, even focus might be off, huh?
the focus isn't off, I don't believe.
Hmm.
I don't believe the focus is off.
So do you use autofocus? Because my lens is crappy.
No, this was done manually. This was done using I take the LCD on the camera and you can do the magnification, the 10x magnification, and I always magnify on the edge.
Yeah.
I'll focus on the edge of it. I'll move the cursor, the little window over to that,
I have
and
to
just
see if my
focus on the
camera.
edge of the moon.
Can every camera do that?
What's that?
Can every camera do that? I don't remember.
Everyone's in the last probably 15 years or something.
Yeah, I think
20
they'll pretty
years.
much have
It's been
somewhere on
it's
there.
been a feature on digital cameras from pretty early on.
Yeah,
If I put these side by side,
yeah, I can do it when I'm
actually,
previewing it.
let me do this one.
Playback, I can zoom in. I didn't know I could zoom in during live image.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a focus. There's a little magnifying
Okay.
glass. This isn't or icon. I mean, this isn't apples to apples in terms of the where it is in terms of the eclipse, but just in terms of the grain. This one might be closer actually.
Good. I was using like a magnifying lens on the screen to try to zoom focus.
Yeah,
Tells you how much I use my camera.
I'll flip that so it's a little more.
Well, I think the full red is the most interesting to people.
So that gives you an idea at least. This is a 1 second exposure, ISO 100.
Okay.
This is a 1/8 second exposure at ISO 400. So there's a difference there of one stop, right? One f-stop between because if it was ISO 800 at 1/8 of a second, it would be equivalent to ISO 100 at 1 second.
Gary, you flashed a picture of your gear there a second.
Oh, I did. Yeah, this is actually what I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to be doing. That's the exact setup I have tomorrow night, except I don't have this stuff on it. I have a camera instead of this. This was a picture I showed you guys, a little rig that I put together with a ISO, an ASI 533. So take all this stuff off, right? The Astro camera, the guide scope, and this red dot finder, and stick a DSLR there.
Which camera did you say it was?
I have a Canon, it's a Canon EOS RP.
But I don't see that in that
pictures
shot.
were done. These pictures were done with a 50D.
Right.
The
But in that
camera I'm
shot-
going to be using tomorrow night is my newer camera. It's not new. It's about 3-4 years old, but it's the newest camera I have, which is an EOS RP. It's a full frame DSLR That's what I'm gonna shoot with
But
tomorrow.
even in that shot, I didn't see a Canon camera.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, these pictures were from a presentation I did last week at the club, at
Yeah,
the monthly meeting. So I'm just in that folder because I know I had a collection of eclipse pictures there because I talked about the lunar eclipse coming up.
but on that 100 to 400 lens, what camera was that?
That's an ASI 533 MC Pro. I've been using that to do some deep sky stuff with that lens, and also with just 100mm prime lens. I've been just using that as an astro camera. I bought a mono camera recently, and it kind of freed this up, so to speak, this camera.
Right.
And I thought, oh, I'm going to make some use out of this because I wanted a really wide field setup. So if I set this lens to 100mm, like kind of where it's set now,
Right.
with that camera, I can get 6.5 degree by 6.5 degree field of view.
That's huge. It's like bino.
With a cooled camera and guiding if I want it. This will guide the Ioptron Sky Guider, I guess it is.
Sky Guider Pro.
Sky Guider Pro will track in RA only. I haven't used it. I haven't had to track. I'm just doing like 30-second exposures. So I polar align using the ASI Air just by just move the mount manually, and then do the polar alignment. And I haven't had to track. Where's the hold on, let me.
You know, there's an app on the cell phone. I think it's called Polar Align. I think it's for Android. I know because I have it on my Android, but I don't know if it's for the iPhone also. That you don't even have to, know you can do it during the day to get things lined up. It's not bad. It'll get you there.
This picture here that I'm zooming in and out on, so you see which one.
Yep.
That was a test shot I made with this setup, not tracking, with 100mm. This is an hour and 18-minute exposure, 156 30-second exposures, non-tracking, with 100mm setting with that camera. So this is it's like 6.4 degrees on a side. It's really a lot. I mean, this is the top. Right there is the top belt star, right? So these are the 3 belt stars of Orion. So I'm going from the top belt star to fair amount below M42 with a single field of view. So I ran a test with that just to kind of see how it would work out without too much muss and fuss, and I'm really happy with that. I like the idea that it can that I'm going to have a rig that's going to have a really wide field of view. It's my homebrew Sea Star plus on the steroids. I have an ASI Air controlling it, which is the same interface that the Sea Star has. Basically, it's the same software that they've repurposed for that, with a better camera and here we go, a better camera and whatever lens I want, whatever focal length I want. So, okay, that's all I got for lunar eclipses.
Hopefully the weather will cooperate.
Hopefully.
Unlike the solar eclipse, I was all ready. I had a camera, a computer, take all this profile of taking pictures, and it started good, and then darkness. But I made the 2017 one. Was it 1917, right?
Yeah, 17.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
that
good.
one was perfect. It just everybody was on their knees praying, and then opened up the sky for 5 minutes and closed up in Tennessee.
That's great.
Where in Tennessee were you?
Centerville, some kind of a town called Centerville.
Yeah, I was in Cookville.
I don't know, probably center of Tennessee. I don't know.
I was out in Knoxville.
Is that right? Okay, yeah, that's where I was. I was just driving on the highway, and the cops were just pe- people would just move on because people were stopping on on the shoulder, and finally they had this big meadow, and they opened it up, and everybody piled in there, and it was like kind of like the uh, the airfield that we used for sky trip. It was beautiful. So, but the last one, disaster.
It was like a
North.
nerd flash mob.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I should have gone west, but I went north, and that was a problem. But I had this special app for that, and it was programmed to take pictures automatically, and I have some pictures, but just as the totality came in, it was dark, and it was much darker than I remember in Tennessee.
Hmm.
Tennessee was, even though totally, it was like kind of dark, but this was really dark, I guess because of the clouds.
Hmm.
I had my grandkids, and they were like all freaked out. It was so dark. But it was a good experience.
Is anyone going to try doing video of the eclipse? Like doing like kind of the equivalent of lucky imaging during the
I might give that a
lunar
try.
eclipse?
I might give that a try just to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
It's
curious.
lucky imaging.
I'm curious too. I have my TV85 outside, that I've been just using to collect some photons on these clear nights, and it's going to be out there doing pretty much nothing. So I might try to run that in video mode to just see what it does, because it would, even if it's a low frame rate, because it's a big object, so you can't do a small region of interest. Um, it's still better than a single frame.
I would think, and you could probably shoot 10 seconds easy, even
Yeah.
at 10 frames a second, you got 100 frames to play with, and you can't go crazy sharpening, but you can do a little bit.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would work.
What is lucky imaging?
Exactly what it is. You have to be lucky.
Yeah.
Any kind of basically in today's world, any kind of planetary image you see or solar image, the hydrogen alpha shots or sunspots or the moon, it's all lucky imaging. And what it is, you take a video versus a picture, a
Oh, yeah.
single image.
Nice. Yeah.
And so you get, anywhere from tens to hundreds of frames per second,
Yep.
and you save a bunch of seconds up so you can shoot. And it's a way of throwing it. Basically, you throw away with things like AutoStacker. You throw away,
Yep. Yep.
a bunch of frames, and you sharpen the other ones. And
Okay.
You see through the atmosphere.
yeah, basically it compensates for what is typical seeing around here. Which is if you look real close on a decent night, like through an eyepiece, if you looked at a planet for like 2 minutes and really just studying it, and actually a good exercise is to like try to go and draw Jupiter sometime. It really forces you to see. And it's kind of neat. So if you watch it and you're kind of in here and you're looking to fill things in, maybe you got the disk and you got the two equatorial bands in, but you're kind of studying it about depending on the night, maybe 10 seconds, 15, 30 seconds, all of a sudden it just gets super clear for a second. And all this detail just pops out. And it's amazing how much you can see. And then it's gone. Boom. So you got to look at different sections and just look at the one section. When it gets clear, you wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, and bang, it comes. You mark those in your drawing, and then you move to another section. But it's moments of clear seeing.
Yeah,
But
I might
that's
try.
what lucky imaging does for you. It basically you've captured, maybe a minute of real time, and you capture a half a second here, half a second there, and if your frame rate's high, like on the planets, you bring the region of interest down on these cameras so small that your frame rate can easily be over 100 frames a second.
Hmm.
In some cases, it could be, up to like two or even 300 frames per second. So if you have half a second clear, you can wind up with 100 good frames or 150 good frames. You get two or three of those in a minute, you got something to stack.
But Tom, if you do this as a movie for the moon, where you require long exposures, how would you do that? The stacking.
Well, you're just getting slow. I mean, like during the eclipse there, say you're shooting with the astronomy cameras, you crank the gain up a little bit. They're pretty quiet, but so maybe you're shooting, say it's a half a second exposure. So you shoot for, if you shot for 20 seconds even, maybe you got 40 frames. Back on that Mars occultation, I think I only got about 50 frames per image when I was
Yeah,
doing the Mars occultation. And even there, and I just, or I got maybe I got 100 frames and I just picked the best 25, and you can just barely do any sharpening because you'll get all kinds of artifacts, quickly will appear.
but
But
isn't the stacking just picking up and rebuilding the image? So if they're all dark because they're fairly undisposed, I mean, just Gary says
no,
you,
no, it isn't like live stacking on a deep
No.
sky object. It's each frame is properly exposed
well, that's the problem.
individually.
Hold on before you continue. So here Gary says you need maybe even 8 seconds to get a nice exposure and low ISO. So how would you do then the
Well, I don't
stack?
expect to be there. Well, if I used it, I use my f4, so that's a medium fast lens as far as
Yeah.
telephoto. It's 800 millimeters. But I would crank the gain up, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
probably shoot anything longer than a half a second. But if I move the gain up, I can
Okay,
make
so
it brighter than I
you have to
need in
make
half a second.
you have to make sure that the image is the right
Yeah, you
brightness.
want as you're looking at it, you want to make sure you got that the image looks right. So each frame is properly exposed, and
Okay.
so then out of this collection of 100 frames, say you've taken, you pick the best 50 maybe and stack those. You can't go too low. 50 is pretty low. Typically on a planet, I like to have at least 1,000 to stack if you can. Like on Jupiter or Mars, you want 1,000 good frames, preferably 2,000 or more good frames, because
So
that
you,
really
so you
calms the noise down.
so you couldn't do the thing you do for like deep sky objects?
No, you're not doing. No, no, you're not
You couldn't do
accumulating
that?
stuff. No,
You
it's just
couldn't.
strictly. They're
Well,
all
I know that
properly.
I know what you're talking about, but could you employ that technique so you have lots of not fully exposed pictures and you stack them,
Hmm.
real stack them?
Well, the
I mean,
problem is,
the
I guess,
object's
with the live
changing.
stacking, you need alignment stars, and I don't think you're going to get them for one, just for one practical thing. I don't know
Yeah,
how
I
you
mean,
would stack it.
I'm overthinking it. Anyway, I think
also with the deep sky object, they're not changing over time. I can go back a year later and look at
oh
the
yeah,
rosette, and it looks pretty much like it did the year
Yep.
before. Maybe over 100 years it might look different, but the moon's going to be in this phase for an hour.
right. Okay, I
So
get
you're
it.
only going to have a couple minutes where it's about the same lighting,
Yeah.
about the same,
So you have
because
to keep
the
you have to keep your
moon's also,
videos fairly short.
yeah.
Okay, I get it. Okay,
But
I'll try.
the ISO is effectively gain, right?
Yeah.
On an astronomical camera, when you're changing the gain, it's the same in a DSLR as upping your
Right.
ISO. So if you bring it
Same
to
thing.
200, you're doubling the gain of the camera. So by taking multiple, like 40, 50 images and stacking them, you're effectively reducing the noise that's
Right.
you're
Yeah.
adding by upping the gain to get a properly exposed image in like a half a second or maybe a quarter second.
Yeah. I will
Like
try
that,
with
like
my
that
cell
one
phone.
image I showed you was 1/8 second, right? So that's 1/125th of a
Right.
second.
Yeah. I will try with my
Relatively
cell
fast
phone.
exposure at 400.
Yeah. I think my cell phone fills on my Dobbs will actually fills the mood is actually not bad, almost filling the frame. So I could take a movie and I'll try that. It's a good idea.
Yeah, I have a question on
Since I have so much time.
my Nikon D5300. There is a video mode.
Yeah.
Now, if I have that on, should I just do like bursts of it, or I can just let it run?
I mean, you can probably do either. You can let it run, and then you can. There's you can kind of slice and dice a video file. The one thing you have to be careful about with and I've done planetary DSLR imaging in video mode. This would be before these planetary cameras came out, and it works quite well. One of the things you have to be careful of, though, is it compresses the files.
Yeah.
So it wants to make like an MOV, Canon makes an MOV file. I'm not sure if Nikon does an MOV. MOV is basically a form of MPEG-4. It's like it's a wrapper around an MPEG-4 encoded file. So MPEG-4 is fairly compressed. So you'll lose image quality that way. It was quite effective though. I mean, I was able to get good images using my old Canon camera in video mode.
Yeah, you can Google to see which cameras compress, and I believe Canons don't.
Yeah, I think later, I think there were also some hacks, some firmware hacks. You could take out your memory card and put in another one, and it would turn off the compression, and then you could run the camera that way. I wound up doing that too, and it worked quite well, but I still needed it as like when I went on vacation. So I stopped doing that because it was kind of too specialized for what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are a lot of options and I think you'd be successful with pretty much any of them.
I saw on the schedule that there's another star party in Anderson Park. I've never been there. What's that about? Anybody going there? Do we go there typically?
Never been to Anderson Park.
I've been there. It's more community outreach with it. So I will say Anderson Farm Park. It's in Collegeville. Isn't phenomenal, but it's a good outreach program and things with it. So it's good to support it. But there's the parking lot has lights and things in it, so it's not like really dark and all that. So it's just kind of more of a smaller gathering. I mean, it was also I used to live in Collegeville, and like Stan Williams is kind of the one that's been hosting it. So it's kind of nice to get together as well, but it wasn't like high quality.
Yeah,
overall. But
with the
darker
with the individual star parties that are like customized for like the Girl Scouts or a library or a school. Typically, you only have a few amateurs there. It isn't like Valley Forge, where you've got 20 people like this last Saturday. It was unbelievable. But you have only a few scopes. Usually, if you're assigned to kind of head that up, you recruit a few people. I've grabbed Gary a few times for the things that I was assigned on, and we go somewhere to like a school or something, and there's maybe 3 or 4 of us there. And maybe 25 students show up, or something, and they look through the scopes, and it's a little more. It's more of a boutique star party versus like Valley Forge, which is everybody comes. It was
So speaking of this party, so my daughter is a science teacher at a private school, high school, and at one point she taught astronomy, and she's a member of the club with me as a family member. And I was thinking that, would if she could have I don't know, get together with her students in the evening, and I would bring my 2 telescopes. Could we organize something? Would some people show up if I ask, hey, how about, would you support this? Have you ever done that? Or
I mean, because I'm loosely involved with this one school, and I've grabbed Gary and Joe Lamb and stuff there because the teacher will come to me. Let's have the students want a star party, and I can't do it by myself, so I try to recruit a few people. And if it works out schedule wise, then I go back and tell them, okay, these are the dates that we can make, or the date you picked is good, and just a few of us show up, and we set things up, and we have some live stack going on. We've got telescope views of the planets going on, like through an eyepiece type of thing, a little variety.
Yeah,
and
maybe I'll ask her.
Yeah, but it's kind of
Somebody bring
where's she located? Where's the school?
It's like a little bit not as far as Valley Forge. It's Harsher. No, not remember. I have to get back to you. But
okay, well, it sounds like
people
it's
would
still with a lot of people around the area, and
yeah.
So,
Maybe somebody
sometimes
could bring the Sea Star. Yeah. You guys noticed the Sea Star increased in price?
No, did they?
I heard Gene Astro put a thing out saying that things are going to happen real soon, and they could happen like at literally any moment. So I guess they did happen. That was like 2 days ago. They sent a thing out saying, you buy it now. If you lock in at the price, if you hit, buy before that
Yeah.
price changes on the web. You get that price, but
But it's
there's no
not
guarantees.
it's not a full 10%. I just looked on Amazon. It's 525.
Well, I wouldn't trust Amazon. Gina still has it for $4.99, so it
Okay.
hasn't gone up officially yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Amazon always marks up stuff, so I mean they're gonna take
Well,
advantage
they
of
were
all
selling
this.
it at 500 before the whole time.
Yeah, but Gina still has it for $4.99. But I saw the email too, Tom, that
Yeah.
everything's about to go up with it, which
Oh,
is
here's
surprising.
something that I brought up to John Saturday night. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it came from Agena, but it's the Smart Eyepiece. Has a 533 chip in there, and it's like the Unistar Odyssey, where it has an eyepiece you can look at as well as you can link to your phone or to your tablet or to your PC to capture, live images. I mean, yeah, like same with the C Star, you're getting images, but there's an eyepiece to look through. But the thing here is, it's just an eyepiece, so you can put this eyepiece, and it's kind of self-contained. You can use it to capture deep sky images and everything, but the eyepiece goes to any scope you want it to go to. So if you've got an 8-inch f4 or you got a 10-inch whatever, you're not limited to these 50 millimeter type apertures on most, smart scopes. And even the Unistellar is only like 4 inches, but you can actually have it on a much larger scope, and you can move it anywhere you want to move it, just like an astro camera, but it gives you a live view, and it looks like it's the same kind of effect as you have with live stacking. As you watch it, it keeps updating every 10 seconds and the image gets brighter and brighter. And
Is it by Pegasus?
yes, I think it's
it's
Pegasus.
Did you see the price?
Smart Eye.
It's like 1,500 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1,600. I'll
Yeah,
put a
they're
link
taking
in the chat.
pre-orders.
I just looked it up.
But
on
it is a
Agena.
it's a curious thing though, because it's if you look at the Celestron Smart Scope at over 3K, or you look at even the Unistellars are all 2 and 3,000, and that's one scope. You can't move it around. So I mean, it's competitive with those. I mean, it's not cheap. It's not like a C Star or a Dwarf, or you can't really compare the two price wise. But it's a nice chip. It's a 533.
Oh, it's an SD card in there too, so it's all completely
Yeah, it
in
does it all. So you don't need a laptop or anything. You just do it. Use it as a visual thing at star parties. But in the meantime, you're collecting all the images too, so you have everything you need.
How do you power it?
Probably a 12-volt plug, probably.
Yeah, probably a plug
One of the
on
coax power plugs.
USB-C, 3 amps.
Oh yeah,
USB-C.
Yeah,
cool.
and it's got auto guiding.
Oh, awesome.
Oh.
$1,600. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does seem like a
cool.
neat thing, though. I mean, it's a nice progression with some of the
But
stuff to.
it's
Cool.
kind of a niche, We'll see who else comes up with something like this. Maybe you get a little competition. Maybe you get it down to something as cheap as 1,200.
Hey,
It's also a cooled camera.
Yeah, it is a cool. I know
It's a cool camera.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, for what you're getting, I mean, a cooled 533 is $800 or so, right?
Yeah.
By itself. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's considering it has its own screen and it's self-contained. You don't need a laptop plugged into it and stuff to capture images. It's pretty cool.
Hey, my mentor said, and I actually wrote it in my little notebook that I carry around with me, the money's not going to spend itself.
That's right. There you go.
And that mentor was Tom Nolasco.
Well, we just need to get one for the club, and
Yeah, there you go. Put it in the rental pool.
bring it
Make a nice.
Okay,
nice
board
rental
members,
edition.
Tom Nolasco.
I can't authorize that myself.
Where's our member at large? We're going to have a little show of hands here. Who wants? Which members want one of these cameras to play with?
Yeah.
The club?
Yeah, really.
Everybody chips
Come
in
on, Len
$100.
Jensen, where are you?
Give me
I don't know.
$100
I
and
guess
you're done.
is he in this year, or he's not in this year? The member at large. Anyway, whoever the members at large are now.
I think Len is one. Len
Okay, a lot of
and
I
Plus
think
money.
was Sylvie one, or there was some. We wanted to get a younger person too, right?
yeah, well, Sylvia is a junior member.
Like a special position
at
for
large. Yeah, special
Okay.
position.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
Well,
me and
whoever these
Doug
people
Lynn
are, I hope
spotted
they
that.
watch this YouTube video later on.
Yeah,
The,
right.
the club has surplus money. You know, you got to use it for something.
Check the
Yeah.
chat.
Hey,
Check the
hey, we
chat.
don't
It'll
have
be
surplus
there.
money.
You have lots of money extra from what I heard from one of these meetings I went to. I'm like,
We're
yeah, they
doing
were looking
good.
for
I
how to
wouldn't say we have
spend it.
surplus.
Is Brett
I know.
selling t-shirts? What is that t-shirt, Brett? That's dithered. Is that a new meme coin? Dithered coin? Can I invest? You're muted.
Yeah, I mean, I, I I think the club
Sure, if
has
you want to invest, John, that'd be fine.
Yeah, dithered coin. That looks like is that a astrophotography dithered, or is that just
Yeah, no, it's even a little fuzzy.
that's what I cool. That's cool. I appreciate that joke.
I have
wow.
one image that I would just like to share because it's not a planetary image. It's a deep sky image, which I don't do. I'm not in the same class as Gary and Dan and a lot of these guys and Joe and all, but for me it wasn't bad. So it's of the
Must be really
it's
good.
of the Eskimo.
Can't say that anymore.
Oh, right. It's of the. I don't
Into
know if
it?
that'll work. You guys see that?
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's the. It's not.
That's
This is
real.
actually through my 8-inch, which is only an 800 millimeter focal length. But I used my I didn't use my typical camera on this. I used the 462, which is what I would use for Mars or Jupiter or anything like that. It's got a smaller pixel. You know, it's under 3 micron pixels, like 2.9. And and this was only actually about 17 minutes. My goal was to get an hour. Actually, I had this brain drizzle versus a storm where I thought, it'd be cool if because the Eskimos, these planetaries are really bright. What if I was to take like real short exposures, like 5 seconds, to take like 400 of them? And so when I have the stack, it's made from 400 images, which are pretty quiet, and I'd bring that into Registacks and just try to sharpen a little bit with wavelets. And I'll tell you, that doesn't work. At least it didn't
Yeah,
work for me.
we just talked about that.
It got noisy, like at the lowest, anything you touch wavelets at all, it just got noisy. So I didn't do that. This is not, it's just sharpened a little bit with unsharp masking in Lightroom.
So is
But
this a 17 continuous exposure?
no, it's 17 minutes of 5-second exposures. I was going to run longer, but I had trouble with the telescope that night. And because what happened is, but I was scared because everything started going really, really south, and I couldn't move the controls on the mount. Three directions moved properly. One direction would start to move the right way, and then suddenly go the exact opposite way. And I'm like, oh my God, my belts are screwed up. I mean, my mount. Well, here I didn't notice, but my counterweight slipped all the way down to the bottom, which I didn't realize. So I had all this, it was way, way unbalanced. So it couldn't overcome it in slow mode. When I was slowing, like go to make it home or move across the sky, it moved okay. But real slow, it just it would lose and gain ground. So lucky it didn't do
So
any
how did you
damage. I've
process
used
it?
it since.
Tom, what was the processing of all these images?
Oh, this is just a sharp cap, 17 minutes of data, just live stacked.
Oh,
And I brought
lifestyle.
it into Serial, which I was hoping to do star removal, but if I try to do star removal on this, it removes the Eskimo Nebula too.
Yeah, you'd have to mask that.
It just leaves a funny, weird brownish blob. So I didn't do that. So I just used Serial to color calibrate it, and then to get the colors right, and then I just play with the generalized hyperbolic stretching, and
Amazing. Is this
that's pretty
real
much.
or
I
is
brought it in
it?
the Lightroom. I just add a little bit of saturation on the color, not much, and just a hair of unsharp masking, and that
Looks
was it.
fake almost. That's amazing. There's something out like that out in the sky, really? Wow.
Oh, there's a lot of things like that.
Yeah,
Never heard of
Can
that.
these are
you
actually
zoom
bright.
in on it a little?
Sure.
Wow. What is that
Yeah,
thing?
it's very cool.
What
It's
is it in
planetary.
reality?
They even have
Planetary.
the little structure around the central portion.
Yeah.
So
That's neat.
what is it then? What's like a,
A
Planetary, no,
planetary
it's
nebula.
yeah, it's shells of gas expanding out.
yeah.
Like shells of gas blew off, and it's just over time. And you've got these little places where the mass kind of collected, so they're thicker and they're kind of knotty.
It's like even circular, huh?
Yeah, it's a nice round. I mean, like the ring nebula is kind of an oval, but this one is a is pretty much dead on circular.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the perspective that we see from our point of view sometimes changes
Yeah, the way it
the
looks. Yeah.
angle of it.
You're right. You're right.
Hmm.
Anyway,
It's a tiny object. It's a real tiny object.
yeah, it's only it's about 50 arc seconds, I think, roughly in that ballpark, 40 to 50 arc seconds.
So it's like Jupiter.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, about that.
Anyway, yeah, right. It's about the size of Jupiter. But I'm using my 8-inch f4 without a Barlow versus a 10-inch almost f9 with a Barlow, you know. So it's
That's
but anyway,
great. I have to try
That's
it.
great.
I just wanted to
So cool.
That's amazing.
just
And
wanted to
Tom,
share
they
that.
were all unguided, right? Since you just
Yeah,
had
they're
the
on
short
guide. I don't do
exposure.
any guiding. I just track. I just put it there and track.
Yeah.
My mounts, it's on a permanent pier. It's not perfectly north, but it's pretty good. Yeah, 2 days ago I was looking at, or yesterday maybe, yesterday. Yeah, I was looking at Venus, and I got it in the eyepiece and stuff, and I have about a degree field of view with it, I guess. No, I had a Barlow one, so probably I'd be like a half degree field of view, and I went in for lunch, had lunch, fooled around for another half hour, went back out, and it was still almost in the center of the field of view. So it was there for like an hour and a half. So it's close to north.
Yeah.
It tracks pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. I'll have to try that one
Anyway,
when I graduate.
but that one's in Gemini, so it's right overhead now. So it's kind of ideal. It's not far from Mars, actually, a little to the upper left of Mars.
That's great. The shot of Venus, that composite that you did of from the end of February to the other day, Venus during inferior conjunction that you posted was
Oh,
really
just
cool,
yeah,
too.
today I set one out. Yeah.
Yeah, the one you sent today. That was excellent. It's amazing how quickly, that part of the cycle with inferior conjunction, how much it changes in such
Oh
a
yeah,
short time.
I have for anybody who's not on the
Well,
the groups.
Tom, have you ever tried, notice you use the red filter, and have you ever
Yeah.
tried Venus with an IR pass? Like basically
Now,
a
I don't
red
have an
filter
IR
on the
pass
spheroid?
filter. I have an IR cut filter, not a pass filter. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I'm curious to try that. I have one, and I've done it in the past, but I haven't done it recently.
Yeah, I don't own one, but that's something I thought might be pretty cool,
Yeah,
you know?
I think the red's getting you partway there, right? So it's getting rid of basically passing the longer wavelengths
Yeah,
so
and
that you
which
reduce
helps. I
some of
mean,
that turbulence and stuff.
in the daytime, uh, the daytime seeing, the worst nighttime seeing is a pretty good seeing for the daytime, as it turns out, because there's so much more air currents and stuff. So it's really hard. I mean, can you guys see the screen now with Venus?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
The one on March 10th. I mean, I'm at the point. Well, it's been windy too. I mean, it's really turbulent. We haven't had steady skies at all. They're not even average at all in the daytime. They're always, poor or bad. But so I'm shooting ridiculous number of frames. I mean, the picture on the right I shot, that's like it's about 25,000 frame video, of which I use 500 and threw the rest away. I mean, it's tough.
getting bigger and bigger, huh?
Yeah, it's getting bigger and it's getting thinner.
And closer to the sun. I mean,
So yeah, I think the 22nd, it's basically at inferior conjunction, which this is about this thing here is I mean the March 10th is about 6.2% illuminated.
yeah.
It drops down to about 1. It's it isn't a real close inferior conjunction. It's about I think it's about 7 or 8 degrees from the sun at its closest, which is pretty far, or it's at least 6.5. It's far. The last time it got as close as like 3.5 degrees, and that's really close
It's
to the
dangerous.
sun.
It's tricky,
Okay.
right?
It's very tricky. At this
Uh,
point, it's not tricky yet because it's right now it's still about 20, 21 degrees away yesterday, I think it was, from the sun. But once it gets inside of about even this is I'm using the 6-inch f9, so it's got a long tube and the mirror's at the bottom. I'm fine, but the light comes down now about halfway down that tube. Down up to about 15 degrees, it won't hit the mirror. So after that, I got to start putting extensions on the end of the tube. I add another foot or two at the end of basically I use cereal boxes that I cut up and tape together and just slide over the end to keep making it longer and longer to keep the sun from hitting the edge of the mirror and
Oh, so
break my
you take it
sensor.
while the sun is still up.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
it when
this
it's
is
higher in
during
the
the day.
sky because
Oh,
I can't see Venus from my house here in
okay.
the
So
west.
start early. Okay.
Hey, Tom, if I wanted to do something similar, what kind of cereal do you eat?
I would go with the with the jumbo family size Cheerios, the Mondo box, biggest box you can get. I
Tom,
actually,
you're talking about this seeing. I was out that same day with Venus. I have the video. If somebody wants to see like what the raw video looks like,
oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Probably.
Yeah.
it's insane. Like whenever I look at your images, Tom, I think how does he get anything out of this kind of video?
Thousands of
But
frames.
this is raw video.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, and that's actually
Holy sh.
okay. Yeah, that was the 10th. That was
This
actually
is
the
yeah, this
best
this is
day.
on the 10th.
Yeah, that was the best day of those 3 days that I had. This was really a good day for
The
Venus.
best
But I mean,
day.
look
I
at
mean,
that.
Looks like
on
a
the
pond.
on the second, it was so bad that there was only brief moments you could tell it was crescent shaped, just briefly. You were like, "Watch over there, it is," and the focus is really insane because it's like, "What's going on?" So you fiddle with it. You think, "Okay, well, I'll just try this focus," and I run through and then I bring it through auto stacker while I'm still out there. And I see, well, that was really nothing. So I take it again, move focus a bit, try to get it again. But that was actually the best of the days too. That was my best picture of
Oh
Venus
man.
in this past. It's
That's crazy.
tough. Venus is tough.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
the other trick's finding it in the day.
Yeah.
That's always difficult.
yeah, what I do, I used to do. It's an old Edmunds mount, just an old Edmunds Scientific circa 1968 telescope mount on the 6-inch. I would do the same thing I'm doing now, except I have a go-to, but I put the solar filter on, I got the sun centered, and they had little 3-inch diameter setting circles that I would move around to whatever the sun's right ascension and declination were. I make them match, but the resolution on those things is about 5 or 10 minutes, in right ascension and another 2 degrees in declination. And then I look where Venus was, and I just do an offset. I look, I go, okay, I have to offset, 5 degrees in declination and an
Yeah.
hour and 10 minutes in right ascension. And I'd go over there and I look around and I'd slowly search around, it was in focus because I had the solar filter and I focus on sunspots. So at least I'm not dealing with that because without a focus, you have no chance. But then I look around for it and when I see it, I would center it. And then I actually imaged the sun like this with that old Edmunds mount, just turn the clock drive on for tracking. There's lots of play in that mount. I slap the camera on and just get an image, but it's
Yeah.
what you did. But now I do the same thing. I tell it to go to the sun. I focus it up, I get to actually I don't have to worry about focus as much now because I'll get it in there and I'll sync the mount be right where the sun is, and then I'll just tell it to go to Venus. And when it's less than like 20 degrees, it's always in the field of view of the eyepiece. So I can see it easily. I center it, throw in the camera without a Barlow lens, using the whole sensor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I center it again, throw in the Barlow, center it again, and then I start cropping the region of interest down to something like 640 by 480, something like that. And then try to shoot. You're shooting at about a 2,000th of a second. So you're really shooting very, very quick
Yeah.
frame. So if it does get a moment of of where it's sharp that lasts. And I'm shooting about 150 frames a second. If I get to a very short time, I can get a few frames to stack. So, but
It's impressive. It's impressive to pull that out of it. I tell you.
But yeah, it's really was.
Yeah.
But it's been really tough. I mean, it's been worse. I mean, typically on the 10th was like a typical day. It wasn't a good day, but this year that's the best so far. Because it's just been so windy.
Yeah, the wind's been brutal.
It's just terrible winds.
The
And the
wind's been
atmosphere
brutal
is
with the seeing.
and we're fooling around in the jet streams kind of going back and forth over us, and that just really wreaks havoc. So actually the whole fall wasn't particularly good. It wasn't as good as the last 2 years because with Jupiter and Saturn even, it was decent, but a couple years ago, for 2 years in a row, it was exceptional where you could see so much detail on the screen in real time. You could see all the festoons and everything on Jupiter. It was unbelievable. And that's like in the live image, let alone when you sharpen it, and pick the best frames. It was just so nice. But this past fall wasn't quite as easy. Mars was pretty tough. Saturn was tough, and Jupiter was tough. But what are you going to do?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a question about planetary imaging. I have two color cameras that I use. One's the 533 for deep sky stuff, and when I decided I want to get serious about a camera for planetary, I got an ASI 385, which is a 2 or 3 megapixel camera for planetary work. And I was noticing that the specs when I got the 533, the specs on the pixels look like they're the same or very close to the same. And I was just wondering, is there any reason that I shouldn't use the 533 for planetary, being that it's got so much more real estate for keeping the planet on the chip?
Well, you're going
I've always found it very difficult
frame
to
rate.
find it.
Yeah, the frame rate's the big deal.
The frame
Well,
rate.
you have to have a small ROI.
Yeah, but
But,
even
But
that,
you're.
Go
Go
ahead, Gary.
ahead, Tom. Sorry.
well, even that, I mean, I have a camera. I have a 183 that I was given by Steve Haas. He's not on tonight. I'm surprised. He is my brother-in-law. He gave me a 183 back in the fall. And with that camera, it's got a 2.4 micron pixel versus the one I used, this 462, is 2.9. So I thought this would be better. But the frame rate, the fastest frame rate I can get with the same region of interest is probably half the speed of the 462.
Yeah.
Some cameras just have very slow frame rates. I mean, the frame rate's just not there, regardless of the pixel size. And you want frame rate. Frame rate is the key.
Right.
Wait, you're talking about the 533 MC Pro?
Right.
Yeah, I've run that experiment with mine, and you can't get anywhere near the frame rate of the planetary cameras. I think just because of they're just not designed for that. They have bigger A to D converters, right? They have 16-bit A to D converters, and I think the smallest you can set it to is 12. Whereas with like a planetary camera, you can use an 8-bit mode, and your frame rate goes way up because you're not moving as much data across, and you're taking enough frames because the frame rate's so high that you don't need 12 bits. You don't need that extra that resolution. So that's the biggest problem, the frame rate.
Yeah,
even with the same apples to apples region of interest.
Yeah. So test both cameras and see which one gives you the best frame rate.
Now they do make Agapios has mentioned multiple times about, and I don't know the brand offhand, but it's a company that makes dedicated planetary cameras using the 533 chip. And he said they're hands down better than other planetary cameras that he's tried. And that chip itself is not the problem. I think it's just the circuitry around it when you put it into that pro setting for deep sky, like the
Oh,
cooled with the higher A to D, the wider bit width A to D.
Yeah. I just like the idea of having a bigger chip so that it'd be easier to get the planet on the
Yeah.
chip.
Yeah,
Because I struggle with that a lot.
I
Oh
think
yeah,
what
no, I
he's
get it.
I think what he's using, I think the camera got is the Player One Saturn.
It is, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Player one. That's it. Yep.
Yeah. He gets good frame rates out of that. I mean, that's really the thing you need. But same with
Okay.
the same thing when I'm doing the planets. When I'm first doing it, I do the same thing. I tell the scope to go there. I throw an eyepiece in and dead center it as best I can. Go and I throw on the camera, but with no Barlows or anything else. I do the same step where I center it and get it all set up. Added 2-power Barlow, okay, center it, get everything there, and just okay, Mike, take care, man.
See you, Mike.
See you, Mike.
And
Heading out too. Good night.
see, and you kind of just work it down. You use the full frame initially, to get the field of view. Because you're right. I mean, so I stayed with like a prime focus with the full sensor to give me the biggest spot to be able to get to the planet, and I slowly work up. And once I got it with the right focal length I want, then I'll start cropping down the region of interest. Because then you're pretty good. It's not moving around much or anything. But to find it initially, I use an eyepiece versus just putting the camera on. I use this. The planetary cameras I use have small sensors too. They're much smaller than
Yeah.
the 533.
Well, of course, I'm using a Smith
Take care,
cast, so I'm
Tom.
shifting the mirror, so that makes it tougher to keep it in the field.
Oh yeah. But
That's wild. I
Okay,
just
well-
stacked that while we were talking. I just stacked that file that
mhm.
I showed of Venus. And this is it's not color balanced or anything, but this is what came out of that garbage.
Hey.
Yeah, it's amazing. There is occasionally a crescent there.
It's my Tom. I wasn't even gonna stack it. I mean, I would have just to see but I took it. What was it 2 days ago, and I didn't even play with it yet because I thought there's nothing going to come out of that. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Wow.
The software these days is crazy,
That's cool.
and lucky imaging is just, man, lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
You work hard to get lucky. I don't know, man.
I hope to see everyone Friday night.
Okay.
Take care
See you
now.
there. It's getting about that time. Everybody going to the meeting? You coming down, Sandy?
Well, the thing is, if I go into that, the bus trip
Oh
on
yeah, go
Saturday,
back and forth.
yeah, because I figured out I got to leave my house because I'm figuring that you can start getting on the bus at 7:45. So I want to be at the parking lot by 7:30, and it's going to take
it sounds
hour
like
15
they're
minutes.
going to have coffee and stuff before you go, kind of
Yeah.
implying it won't be on the bus. So it's
Oh, well, driving from my house, that the Lebanon Lancaster exit out to Valley Forge is like an hour and 15 minutes. The only good thing is shouldn't hit any traffic.
yeah, that's
So-
true. On Saturday morning should be good. Should be a smooth
Yeah.
sail.
So
Yeah,
I'll have to get my dead ass out of bed early that day. So that's because normally when we go to Dave and I go to the meetings on Friday, we don't get back to my house till like 11:30, quarter to 12 sometimes. It depends if I have to stop on the turnpike to whiz. Old prostates and all that shit.